Hi everybody, welcome back to another Echoes of Sunday video. I am your host, Cody Birching, and I'm joined once again by my good friend, Logan Cook.
Hey guys, we are very excited for our guest today. We both have him this semester for our class. He's our Hebrew professor, Professor Schaefer from California.
Yes, formerly California, now
Formerly California.
beautiful New Ulm, Minnesota.
Just moved this past summer, right?
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm sure the weather's probably pretty similar to California as it is in New Ulm.
Yeah, just like 40, 50 degree difference about this time of year. Yeah.
Yeah. How's your first semester been going, Professor, on campus?
Oh, it's been awesome. Really, I mean, the men in junior Hebrew are just phenomenal, so that's always a blessing. But no, like everybody, the students, the other faculty too, and the feeling on campus. It's been 20 years since I was a student here, so the feeling on campus has definitely changed for the better. I think just grown, and it's been awesome.
For the better.
Yeah, definitely. And my kids too, having my kids here, get to grow up in New Ulm now and go to school. That's been a total game changer for them in terms of their friend circle and things like that. So it's kind of neat to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where are you from originally?
Originally, I grew up in Minneapolis. My dad was a mission pastor in Arizona, so I was born in Arizona. So I always liked the West and thought of the West as pretty cool. And so, yeah, but then when I was little, like 3 years old, we moved to Minneapolis. I lived there most of my life. Went to high school at St. Croix Lutheran High School in West St. Paul, Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And
St. Croix.
yeah, St. Croix. And then here at MLC and then on to SEM. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, one question we always like to start off with is what's your faith story like? What brought you to MLC, and how has Jesus kind of worked throughout your life?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It opens up a lot of different avenues too, because I think about, obviously, my salvation was a free gift. God made me his own in the waters of holy baptism when I was 2 weeks old. So I was really blessed to have Christian parents who raised me and nurtured me, and went to Lutheran elementary school, had that experience. Lutheran high school was great. So in a certain sense, my journey has been pretty normal in that sense, but I think it's still a miracle of grace for all of us. There's that temptation to be like, well, I wasn't like converted when I was in college and I didn't have some big conversion experience or something like that. Right. So I think we always got to, just appreciate God's grace in our lives for what it is and thank him for that. And so, I mean, for me too, even though I was raised in a Christian household, went to Christian schools, there were still those times where I felt like God was really just watching over me. I didn't deserve it, but he was still with me and helped me to grow. And high school, you go through ups and downs and your faith life and college was MLC was just awesome for me. I mean, the professors I had, I still remember the guys that influenced my faith in a powerful way. Professor Kelpine, he's still here. Professor Deutschlander is now in heaven. Professor Nass, who I got to work with now and humbly fill his shoes.
Full circle.
I tell people I'm a poor man's Tom Nass. So, but the Professor Frederick, these guys who are just so faith-filled and point to the scriptures so well. So that was a big part of my personal growth as a Christian. And the seminary too, just great professors there and men of God. So, and my wife, I could not be where I am without my wife. She's been awesome. We've been married 16 years, coming up on 17 in January.
That's awesome.
So get yourself a good woman and you'll be blessed.
Did you meet her at MLC?
Well, yeah, her brother was my classmate.
Oh, okay.
So I met her. I went home with him one weekend, and he never told me he had a sister. And I was like, who's that girl on the couch?
He's trying to keep her away.
Right,
That's
yeah.
funny.
He's just a quiet guy. So he's got 3 sisters, actually.
So did you go there to hang out with your friend and then only talk with your future wife then over that weekend?
No, we didn't talk much. I think I said hi to her, and then we had to go. We were in Milwaukee for something with seminary, so...
I was gonna say, what was the strategy there? Hard to get, just very talkative, take the initiative, or too cool for this? I was just curious.
No, I just kind of slow played it. I noticed her, and I know he's a good guy, and
keep it in the back of your mind.
Right, exactly. So a couple of years later, then we started dating, and God was good, and she kept saying yes every time I asked her out. So
wow,
yeah,
there you go.
Went in a good direction.
That's a
That's
huge
awesome.
win.
Yeah, exactly. Small miracles continue throughout your life.
Yeah.
Was there ever like a particular moment that you'd say in your life thus far that you feel like your faith was maybe most challenged?
Oh man, I think the challenge is, I think there've been a ton of times where I've felt challenged in different ways, and whether it's a spiritual thing, whether it's a personal thing, relationship thing, ministry thing. I think I could think of a number of examples of, as a pastor, where we had tough things going on that really forced me into the scriptures and forced me to just pray a lot more and meet with people. I think of personal things that I went through when I was, let me think here, I was 15. Yeah, I was 15 when my brother, we were cliff jumping off the St. Croix River.
Cool.
And total awesome experience. It was actually a youth group trip. We had like all the churches in the Twin Cities would go and do this. We'd canoe on the St. Croix River, then we'd do some cliff jumping, which wasn't technically officially sanctioned.
Okay.
And then we'd go and do like a water park after that. But when I was 15, my brother, we were cliff jumping, and he fell off the cliff actually and landed on his head. And he was airlifted out to Hennepin County Medical Center, big hospital in Minneapolis. He got airlifted, and I was the guy who was with him in the ambulance, and I couldn't go with him in the helicopter, but I remember seeing him and thinking, my older brother, my hero, is going to die. Pretty powerful for our family, traumatic experience. But 2 weeks later, he was home. He was fine. He had some initial, he couldn't speak at first. That's like, oh man, is this going to be permanent?
Yeah.
And we'd ask him, who am I? Who am I? And he'd say, Adi Dassler, who's the founder of Adidas. He's a big soccer player. And he'd say, Adi Dassler. I'm like, no, I'm Ben. I'm your brother. And it was pretty
funny.
crazy. Yeah. And then actually, so 2 weeks later, he was home. And a month later, he started here at MLC. And now he's John Schaefer, professor of new teacher induction, continuing ed. He's a teacher track prof here. So he's overseeing that program. I probably just told everybody like his story. This is really his story to tell, but it was one of those traumatic things for me. Like, why do we turn to the Lord? Why does our faith matter? It's like, well, there's really no way to explain what happened to him other than God's grace in sparing his life and then healing his body. Probably the biggest formative experience in my high school life was that right there. Yeah, it just solidified my desire to be a pastor, tell people about this amazing Savior God who treats us not as our sins deserve, but lifts us up in grace, forgives us, and then helps us through these horrible, horrible situations too.
How long did you want to be a pastor for?
So since I was little, my dad was a pastor, so I kind of saw it growing up. But I remember when I was 7 years old, I remember we had a cabin in northern Minnesota, like a lot of people do. And we would go up there every summer, and there were 3 boys who lived next door, and I had a family of 3 boys. So obviously all 6 boys were just playing. And the one who was my age, he didn't know any Bible stories. I'm like, you're kidding me. We're walking in the woods and I'm telling him about like David and Goliath, and he didn't know Moses. He didn't know Abraham.
Right.
And I just had so much fun on that hike explaining all that to him. He didn't know Jesus. He had heard of Jesus. I mean, everybody's kind of heard of Jesus.
Yeah.
But why is he such a big deal? And to be able to explain that to him, and I'm 7 years old. I probably screwed it up royally, but I said he's awesome, and I just tell him stories, and that I remember that experience just being like, I couldn't believe that there were people that didn't know him. When you go to Lutheran school, everybody you're around knows Jesus, prays. Everybody's family goes to church, or at least kind of should go to church.
Yeah.
But I remember that as being like, I want to do this full time. I want to do this my whole life. And I didn't really deviate from that. I kind of had ups and downs where a commitment level wasn't always there, but I always thought this is a pretty cool thing to do, to be able to tell people about God's word and their Savior.
Was there anything else that was like, maybe I could do this possibly in the back of my mind?
Yeah, I mean, we had a guidance counselor in high school, so she would be like, well, you want to be a pastor? Is there anything else? And so she kind of would poke me and stuff, and my uncle was in the Marines, and I always liked, I liked the idea of serving our country. And so I looked into going to Annapolis, Maryland, the Naval Academy there. That's where Marines go for officer training. So I thought, well, Like, what do I have to do that? And I was confused. I thought Rambo was a Marine. Now, if you know the Rambo movies with Sylvester Stallone from the 80s, they're like rated R, so please don't judge me on this. But when I was younger, I thought Rambo is so cool. My grandpa actually called me Rambo, and so I thought Rambo was a Marine. And I'm like, I want to be a Marine. But
Yeah.
I found out now, like 3 years ago, that Rambo is actually he was in the Army. He was an Army Ranger. But
Oh, man. Dreams crushed.
right, exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, it came way late in life, but
Wow.
yeah. So that was kind of an alternate thought that I had.
Schaefer the Marine.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
Discipline is good, especially for young men.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I think that story of you like telling the kid all those Bible stories in the forest, it makes me think of, because your story is very similar to mine in the sense that I basically always knew I wanted to be a pastor. And I vividly remember as like a 4 or 5 year old, we had a playground like on our neighborhood. And I'd just go, and anytime I saw someone, I'd just like start talking to them about Jesus. I was like, where do you go to church? And it's just like the childlike faith is just so incredible. And then it's interesting because then you get older, and at least for me, it becomes more and more intimidating to share your faith.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, that dynamic between, being really young and just not thinking about any other things other than just, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm going to tell other people, to then being older and thinking of everything else that's going on in life and all the reasons why you shouldn't do this, or maybe the devil doesn't want you to do it, whatever that looks like. But yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, did you feel pressure to be a pastor from your family? Your dad being a pastor and things like that?
Not really. No, my dad, it's funny. My mom just reminded me of this like a few weeks ago over Thanksgiving. My parents had an agreement, cause I asked why they never took me to seminary. Like, I grew up in a pastor's family. My grandparents lived in Brown Deer, which is right by the seminary, but I never visited the SEM campus until I was a junior, and you take that trip to to SEM. And my parents actually told me they had an agreement that my dad wouldn't pressure me to be a pastor, and my mom wouldn't dissuade me from being a pastor, because my mom was not crazy about the idea of her kids going into ministry, because she knows what it's like. It's not always easy, and then you got to move away. She wanted she likes her family close, and so. They had that agreement, and I thought, that explains a lot. But so I didn't really feel pressured.
That's really cool. I think that intentionality from a parent is refreshing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Have you tried to do that with your kids a little bit?
Yeah, we let them know that, they could serve God, in a lot of different ways. And I think there's a natural, like now that we live, 300 yards from the MLC campus, there might be some of my girls might feel a little pressured to do it. But I think too, the state of higher education today is different than 20, 30 years ago. So like higher education is more, I would say, overtly anti-Christian. I don't think it's ever been super like friendly to Christianity, but I think there's maybe a little more danger. So we've talked with that. With our girls about that. Like, you got to watch out when we're talking about college. It's not like you got to decide, is there campus ministry there? Like those are the big questions. Is there a church you could go to? And then think about, does it have a good program for architecture? I got a daughter who wants to do that. And but we keep telling them, just keep your options open. Serving God as a teacher is good. I think finding a Christian spouse, I would put up there. You kind of joke sometimes about, coming to the MLC to get married. But it's no joke when you get out in the world. The people I served in California, they would kill for other people in their 20s to date. And it's like, maybe it's not so bad at MLC when people date and are getting married, because it's tough. It's tough. It's a lonely world. And if God brings you somebody you can find, awesome, way to go.
I think it is a rare thing to meet somebody this young and try to get married in the next couple of years, in your 20s, in your early 20s. It's pretty rare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In our society, it's total. You're like a unicorn almost. You're doing stuff like that, but it's a huge blessing. And then you don't have to wait to start your life. I mean, that's really the goal too.
Wait to start your life.
Part of the goal of life is to build something, and it's way better to build it with somebody of a common faith. And you build a family, you build a life, you build a strong relationship. That's what's going to make the big difference for you long term.
That's kind of a cool perspective. I never thought about it like that. I've always thought that the obsession with dating and getting married at MLC has always been one of the things that I've disliked the most about the school.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to hear perspective on the other end that maybe it's not as bad as I think it is or thought it was.
Yeah, and it's different when you're going through it. I when I was here, I dated a little bit, but I was more dedicated to my studies. Honestly, I was nervous that I wasn't gonna, like, how am I going to be able to juggle 3 languages and try and, be a good boyfriend? I thought about that, and you overanalyze it, and the paralysis by analysis. But yeah, I think that's part of getting through it too. Once you're out of it, you might view it differently.
Yeah. Fast forward maybe backtrack, because I know you mentioned it earlier when you were talking in your face story about how coming back to MLC now, you've noticed a culture change or how it's different now, and how you think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how you have been maybe more impressed by it now than when you were going through it. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about that and how it's changed since you were a student?
Yeah. When I was here, I was here in the years when we had over 1,000 students. Wow. So almost every room in Concord was a 3-man room.
Oh, wow.
And I had, that was my freshman year, was 3 guys, and 2 of them I went to high school with. So, it wasn't bad.
On top of each other, like literally.
Yeah. And it was.
This is the same Concord dormitory that we have now.
Right. Yes. Yeah. They didn't have the nice furniture either. It was more like, they found, random stuff, and
where'd you put all your stuff?
Oh, it was tough. It was honestly,
I'm thinking of these rooms, and I'm like, I don't know.
We had 2 loft beds that were like really cheap metal loft beds, and every room would kind of be a different loft bed. So it's like, where'd they get these from? Like a wholesale warehouse or something.
Recycling.
And there was only 1 or 2 desks in the room. So not everybody even had a desk that you could study at. But with that many people, it just led to a broader diversity of people. So you'd have people who weren't, they were kind of coming because, well, everybody's going, even from St. Croix, I had 16, 17 classmates who came, and I think only maybe 3 of them finished all the way through. Wow. So, you got a lot of people that are there who aren't necessarily dedicated to the idea of ministry or, it was more, and I think you had that across the board. You just had a lot of people, and so then you get the ups and downs of, well, this is stupid. Why are we doing this? And that's a little bit louder. Everybody wrestles with that. We kind of wrestle with that. But if you're not dedicated to being a pastor or teacher in any way, shape, or form, and you're just going for the college experience, MLC really isn't the place. It's not like UW-Madison or something. That's not. We've got a totally different calling here. And if you forget that, well, then college is not going to be about growing spiritually or, dedicating yourself to something bigger than your individual pleasure. Then college becomes a big party or something like that. So I think we had a good group of students here. Don't get me wrong, but it was just bigger. So you had more people like that, and the administration. It was kind of after. I started here about 6 years after amalgamation, which was 1995 when DMLC and Northwestern College merged. So there was still a little bit of trying to make that work among the faculty and the administration. And 6 years really isn't that long. For us, it seems longer, but when you've been around for 40 years and you've been teaching and then you got to move, I really feel for some of those professors who had to kind of make a new thing work that our church body wanted to do. And it's definitely been a blessing now. You could do a few guys have done the research on it about amalgamation, and the benefits from it overall, I think, have been, super positive. But, at the time, I think that was a little hard. I was the first class that Professor Kelpine ever taught women in.
Well, okay.
Wow.
So up until 2001, he had been teaching men only. For the first 6 years of MLC, there was 2 colleges within one location. You had the pastor track guys doing all their classes separate, and the teacher track guys doing all their classes separate. And then they started to integrate it, which is a good thing. I think it makes sense. It's part of the reason we merged. But yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at with the spirit. It's like, no, this is who we are, and let's be who we are. Let's train as Lutherans to go out and do ministry to the glory of God.
Did you have a lot of teacher track friends, or was it
kind
of more
yeah,
separate?
Yeah, by the time some of my best friends still are teachers, and it's cool when I get a call. Like I had a call a few years ago to be president of Illinois Lutheran schools outside Chicago, and one of the principals was a good friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, oh man, I'd love to serve with you, just not the right time, not the right call.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have that kind of stuff, and those are really cool. Then conversations, you catch up, you talk ministry, you get excited about things. And
it's tough though, because you can't see each other for years on end, probably.
Oh yeah. And we'd run into each other so often, but so a lot of my good friends are teacher track guys that I know they're doing good ministry too. It's kind of exciting when we get a chance to catch up, or we run into kids at different things like Choral Fest or other synod-wide things, to youth rally. I'll see them at the youth rally. It's like, hey, you got your kids here? Yeah. I'm like catching up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We were just talking to a friend yesterday about like the camaraderie that you build at MLC and at the seminary for pastor track guys.
Yeah.
And how quickly that gets taken away from you, because it's like you're by each other every day for 8 years pretty much. And then call day happens. And then some of those guys you never see again.
Yeah.
What's that experience like for you? Like, it's got to be pretty hard, I imagine.
Yeah, it definitely, you got to find ways to stay connected. So like our class has a email group, just a Google email group that people will send out funny stuff or ask questions too. They'll say like, anybody got this? We'll share notes actually. It's funny, anybody got the notes from this class at seminary? And then so we'll share stuff. But yeah, that is tough. That is, you're around and then you say see you later. But then when I see guys, there are different guys in your class that maybe you aren't totally close with now, but you've definitely got a bigger bond with them than you maybe know. And seminary just grows because that's, you kind of have every class with the same group of guys. So then, when I got out in the ministry, you'd see those guys at stuff. And it's like, hey, how you doing? Maybe we didn't, hang out every Friday night, but you definitely have a connection that is great to revive whenever you can.
Were you still part of the cohort of pastor track people that maybe not everybody got a call? Or
I was actually, 2009 was the year I graduated, and that was the downturn in the economy, the 2008 housing crisis. And I think it was President Schrader's maybe first or second call season. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes with, okay, how many graduates do we have? How many calls are out there? How many guys are retiring? And it kind of snuck up on them in 2009 because like a couple of years earlier, they didn't have enough they didn't have enough guys for all the calls. So there were these swings within a few years of we need more guys. And then, oh shoot, we don't have enough places for all these guys to go. Yeah. And actually in 2009, I was one of 11 guys who didn't get assigned.
Oh, you didn't?
On call day. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was one of those hard experiences that you're like, what's going on, Lord? We had a class of 41 guys, 44 guys. I think 3 were PSI. Like alternate track, Pastoral Studies Institute guys, Hmong guys actually. And, so yeah, we had 11 guys who weren't assigned, and it was a big blow when the night before call day, we're sitting in the chapel and President Wendland says, okay, looking forward to tomorrow. 11 of you won't be getting calls. Here's your names. And it was like, whoa. So
they told you before.
Yeah, they told me before. So total gut punch there.
And that wasn't something you were expecting then, right? Because you said it blindsided President Schrader.
Oh, yeah. I don't want to speak for him, but that's kind of the scuttlebutt we had as students, talking and hearing from the district presidents. We knew that it was like, well, there aren't a lot of guys retiring because the economy is so bad, and they weren't opening up missions like they are now to the same degree. Mm-hmm. And so they just didn't have the number of calls for us. But then you got to turn to the Lord. You got to trust that there's still a plan. and that he's got a place for me to serve. So then my wife and I scrambled and we're like making plans for the summer. And I had this whole plan of what we were going to do. And then 2 weeks later, I got assigned. I think I was the second guy assigned. So I actually got installed July 5th, which was before most of my classmates. I was installed and ordained before like half the guys that got assigned on call day. So it's like, okay.
How does that work then if they didn't have the call 2 weeks earlier?
Well, the call that I got assigned to, that it was brought to the assignment committee, and the conference of presidents kind of, they looked at it, and they actually sent it back to the church, and they said, we think we have a good guy for you. You have to adjust what you're looking for. Because they were looking for one guy to do Hmong and English, and they didn't have anybody to do Hmong and English, but they had me to do English, and they did have a Hmong graduate. So they could assign both of us to do that. And so that was kind of out there already. I never knew that. I didn't know that till like years later when I was talking with President Winland. But that's kind of the stuff that happens behind the scenes, and you don't know. All you know is I don't get a call. And but God was working and using the leaders in the church to make sure we get put in the right spot on call day. So yeah, I've actually addressed then the next couple of years. Dean Brenner, John Brenner, was professor at seminary, retired now. He asked me to come and talk to some of the guys at call day who didn't get assigned, because it's like, okay, I literally know what you're feeling like. I've been right where you are, and let me assure you, God's got a plan. He's going to put you in the right spot. And you don't want to force somebody. Maybe there are calls out there, but if it's not a good fit, like you don't want to go somewhere where you're not going to serve well or be a good fit personally or gifts-wise. Yeah. So they try and take all that into account. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was it pretty common to get a call soon after call day if you were one of the people that didn't get a call?
Yeah, I mean, it was different for everybody because we had so many guys. And I think my last classmate to be assigned was assigned the following January. So he had like 6 months to wait.
Yeah, that's killer.
But and it's not based. It is totally. It's totally based upon the gifts and the fit for the guy. Because some of the guys that didn't get assigned, I mean, they're rock stars in my opinion. They're the guys that like I think you could serve anywhere. I think you're so gifted. I think you got so many abilities, and then here they are sitting on the sidelines, and it's like, well, okay, God's obviously got a plan because it's not merit based or you got the best grades based. It's totally grace. It's a call from God through the church, and they seriously put a lot of emphasis on getting the right person in the right place. And that actually might be hard, but it gives you confidence that it's not like an old boys club or, of course that person got a call, right? It doesn't work that way. It's driven by the Lord ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it you and a Hmong guy that got the call?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. We were assigned, and then we got installed together, which was cool. He had been serving the church as like an evangelist and then went through the PSI program to be an ordained pastor. Cool. And so he got to stay in the church, which is really good culturally speaking. You don't want to bring another guy in. Like if they would have assigned somebody else to that church, it would have been really
so
tough.
he was from that church.
He was from that church, went through the PSI program, and then was willing to go anywhere, because we all, as pastors, you got to be willing to go anywhere.
Sure.
You can't say, here am I, Lord, send me right where I want to be. You say, here am I, send me, send me. And so he got assigned as the Hmong pastor for the church, and I got assigned as the Anglo pastor. And we got installed on the same day. It was super cool.
What did that ministry look like then? Did you have like a Hmong service and then an English service? Yeah, we do. It started out, we'd have 2 English services in the morning, and then the Hmong service would be kind of we had a nice heritage hall that we'd have it in, and and it was a smaller group, so we'd have the Hmong service at the same time as our late service. All right.
So we did that. And then they were like, well, we actually want to worship, the Hmong congregation said we'd like to worship in the sanctuary, which I thought, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So then they did it at noon or 1 o'clock. They'd do it after the Anglo services in the morning, then they do it in the afternoon. Yeah, so I'd say like their service was noon, but the Hmong clock have rubber hands, is what they'd say. So it's not like, and Americans were like, okay, it's 11:47 and we haven't started church yet. We're down to the second, but the Hmong are like, well, we're going to wait for a few more people to come here. It's like, well, okay, so what time does service start? It might be a little later.
It is a very American idea.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I often appreciate that when other cultures kind of just bend the American rules a little bit, and you're like, you know what? It really doesn't matter that much.
Yeah,
like we're going to start when we start, and it's still going to be good. And get as much out of it as we can.
Right, and if church goes a little longer than an hour, nobody's going to die. Right, it might actually be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's that kind of stuff that,
You might miss the opening kickoff, but we promise we'll be back by halftime.
Right, I served near Green Bay, Wisconsin. So, and
Is that where the call was?
I served in Manitowoc,
Okay.
And Manitowoc, it was close enough. It's about half an hour. So people would come in their Green Bay Packer jerseys and,
so cool.
the game time pastor. And so
I remember my dad served in Washington, and every now and then he'd do like prayer requests in the service. Just to like change it up a little bit. And without fail, every week he'd do it. Like people would be wearing their Seahawks jerseys and they'd like, can we pray for the Seahawks to win? And People take football hardcore.
What do you
in
do
America.
then as a pastor? Do you pray for the Seahawks?
You pray for the Seahawks to play well.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not really a super good way to handle it.
Right, yeah.
Please keep everyone safe, and
Yeah.
if it be your will, let the Seahawks win. Something like that.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So that was your first call then, and then was the next call that you accepted, was that the California one that you were serving at until this year?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. In 2018, I moved to California. Yeah.
So you had served that Wisconsin congregation for a while, then that'd be what, 15 years?
Nine years.
Oh,
yeah,
9.
9
Okay.
years. Yep. But yeah, it was great. I mean, got to serve, do all sorts of cool stuff and work with such awesome people. With a school, big church, we were the OG original cross-cultural ministry. It's the Hmong ministry there started in the 80s. So before it was cool, we were doing Hmong ministry. But
That's cool.
Yeah, but it was it was just a group of people that wanted to reach out with the gospel, saw their neighbors, and started getting to know them. And then in 2018, I moved took a call to California.
What was that thought process like while you were deliberating? Could you maybe give us an insight into that, like choosing to go to California and leaving behind the only ministry you had known that far?
Yeah, it was brutal. I mean, I had the decision process was tough because I had received a number of calls before that, but going to the Lord in prayer, talking to my wife, kind of trying to weigh kingdom needs and where my gifts might best be used. And where we were at in Manitowoc, I thought it was a good time to take a call that they had a chance to kind of reset a few things, and work in the school would continue. They had a good new principal that I thought, he's a capable guy. He'll be able to hold that side down. We had 2 other retired pastors, but they were on staff. One was doing visitation. One was kind of helping me with preaching and stuff. And I knew he could handle ministry if I were to leave. And then we had 2 or 3 pastors in the church who were, they were teachers at Manitowoc Lutheran High School. So we were blessed to have guys right in house.
Right there.
So I figured, okay, everything, all things considered, there was maybe a bigger need out in California where they had been calling for a year and a half and nobody was taking it. And there was a school in California. So I always thought, hey, if I get a call to a church with a school in California or out west, that's something to consider, because then my kids would have a place to go and grow and meet other Christian kids and have a safe environment. That was a big deal to me. My wife always told me she couldn't homeschool. She was not going to homeschool our girls. She just knows herself, and I think she'd do awesome at it, but she just said she'd prefer not to do that. So it was like, okay, well, if we have a school, then I can do the church ministry side of it. And it was about 2.5 hours from the nearest Wells church. So it was about as different a ministry as I could imagine. Manitowoc is a place with 30,000 people, and 10,000 of them are Wells. It's a unique part of our synod where you've got just a high saturation, kind of like Appleton, but
sure.
It goes back to the like the olden days when the Missouri Synod got Sheboygan, and that's to say about 20 minutes south of Manitowoc. So the Missouri Synod gets Sheboygan, and the Wisconsin Synod gets Manitowoc. And that's how they divided it up. So you've got all these Wells churches in Manitowoc, one Missouri church, and then Sheboygan has 10 Missouri churches and one Wells church.
Wow.
Even though it's in the middle of Wisconsin, it's kind of interesting. So so then California is 2.5 hours away from the nearest Wells church.
Yeah.
And totally different, totally mission setting, but fantastic people. The leaders I talked with were just awesome and really had a passion for reaching out with the gospel. And that's kind of what I wanted to do more of. I was the administrative pastor in Manitowoc, so I did a lot of oversight and leadership type stuff, which is fun. I mean, that's a great thing to do, but I wanted to just do some raw working with people, teaching Bible information class and go knock on some doors, go meet community leaders who don't know what's the Wisconsin Synod. So I felt like that was a good fit for me at that time.
What was your approach to those conversations? Because I know I've had the privilege of serving at a couple different, or volunteering at a couple different like mission congregations, and their approach is usually just don't approach it like nobody knows anything about the Wells, because they almost certainly don't, and then just share with them the gospel and then lead that into talking about the synod and what we believe. Was that similar to your approach?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of depended on who I was talking to, but I will say I didn't shy away from the Lutheran label, because not that labels define us, but I think I had a chance to explain what that means, and I'm a Lutheran pastor, so I found myself doing that, because people would think like ELCA Lutheran, and it's like, well, no, let's talk about what Lutheran really is.
Yeah,
there was a big non-denom church, Bethel, Bethel Redding. Bethel Music is one of the top
Bethel Music, yeah,
CCM labels.
Yep.
So Bethel was huge, and they're a non-denom church that's like super charismatic and part of the New Apostolic Reformation, which is really, really wacky. That you should do a podcast about the New Apostolic Reformation sometime.
I don't know much about it.
Yeah, it is crazy. So it was like, okay, we're different from that. We're about the scriptures. Everybody says that though. Like, oh yeah, we're all about the Bible. Well, no, what does that actually mean? Like that God, only speaks to us through his word. He's not going to blow in your ear. I'd meet people who were like, I prayed to God, should I go to, Qdoba today or McDonald's? And God told me Qdoba. I'm like, what?
Yes, he did.
Yes.
That's the right answer.
That's the right answer. Yeah. For health reasons, I'd agree with that. But, like, it was that kind of stuff that you'd run into. And so, like, not being shy about just sharing your faith and, what we believe. And yeah, I didn't really say I'm Wisconsin Synod. That would be a weird, like, well, Wells, what? I'd say, if I did say stuff, I'd say I'm Lutheran. And we belong to a national church body. And our leadership, helping our new members learn more about our synod, was an awesome experience. But yeah, people off the street or community leaders, they'd be like, so what are you guys? That's kind of how they'd explain it. Cause I didn't want to be associated with Bethel in any way.
Okay. Yeah.
We're not like a subsidiary. Sure. We're not just like them. We're like, how do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace of ideas? And I would say lean into who you are. Like, don't be ashamed of it. And you got to own it and define it well and let it be about Jesus and his word. But that can help people grow too. I think our members appreciate it because they had grown up in these other things where they were fine labeling themselves as Baptist. They were fine saying I'm Calvinist. They're proud of that. And sometimes I felt like maybe in Lutheranism we just want to be about the Bible, which of course, who would disagree with that? Yeah. But what does it mean in the context of a community of people and helping them, find their identity as a Lutheran Christian? I think that was kind of a fun experience for me.
Was this a lot of stuff that you learned when you went there? Because you had a lot. Your only experience was in a saturated kind of Wells city, and then in California, it's like nothing. Yeah.
I think it sharpened a lot. I mean, I'd say it was all there in Manitowoc that our doctrine doesn't change, our teaching doesn't change, but maybe the way we present it a little bit and the emphasis. I actually feel like I became like more thankful that I'm a Lutheran in California. It wasn't just because I was born in a Lutheran house. You know, people say that. Well, you're only a Christian because you were born in a Christian house. If you were born in a Muslim house, you'd be Muslim. It's like, well, you know, you've heard that argument before. Yep. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. That fits in line with the thinking that all paths are the same. Mm-hmm. And I mean, certainly there's cultural things, and I thank God for where I was born, but there is a truth out there, and there's a God who is seeking. The Bible says that he's always seeking. And so it's not that I was born in this household and I'm raised like that. And all religions are not the same either. You know, that's kind of lurking behind people saying that. Well, it's, you know, if you were born somewhere else, you'd be Muslim. It's like, well, maybe I would have grown up that way, but I know a God who reaches out to people. I know a God who seeks, and I know I have a natural knowledge of God that I want to find him. So I can give you many examples of people who grew up Muslim, but they never felt right. And they heard about Jesus and they wanted to learn more. And that's what we have, so we don't take it for granted. But anyway, yeah, like in California, just sharpened my appreciation for who we are and what we do, like what we do here at MLC. You guys are getting the greatest Lutheran education on the planet. I would say that without a doubt. And what we have is just phenomenal. Whether it's teacher track, pastor track, our school system is unbelievable. And like, I didn't realize that going through. It's like, oh, this is where I got to go if I want to be a pastor. Okay, fine. All right, let's go. Come on. Southern Minnesota. Great. But it's like, man, if you could lay out all your options for Lutheran higher education, I can't imagine a better spot. Better training, better people, higher standards. What you come out with, it's just crazy. So yeah, a lot of that just sharpened in California, that people were, you just get used to kind of talking about who you are. And we did a couple of things that I didn't start, but I really appreciated. Like we did every Sunday communion. The guy before me had done that. And it was partially because we had people come in from an hour away, and you know, if they make it in a month, they want to have Holy Communion. And so it's like, okay. But it's also in line with who we are as a sacramental church. We believe that God works through means, and doesn't matter if church lasts 70 minutes, 75 minutes, everybody's coming. They're just glad to be around brothers and sisters in the faith. And so I would often explain, hey, I'm glad you're here. Where are you from? You know, oh yeah, we go to this church. Hey, we got communion today. It's a membership communion, and I'd love to talk with you more about it. If you want to hang out after, I can explain a little bit more about our doctrine and our process. If you want to join and take communion, I'd love to have you at the table. But for today, just hang out in the pew when the guys usher people up. And 99% of the time, people were fine with that. But it allowed me to talk more openly about what we believe and who we are, and not being ashamed of that or nervous. Oh, how's somebody going to react? Like, I got over that real quick.
Yeah.
So
that's really cool. So, I mean, that's keeping in theme with who you are as like a Lutheran church, then you'd say, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's so cool. 'Cause again, a lot of the mission churches that I've seen, it's just cool to see how everybody does it differently. But a lot of them, like, communion's a very hard thing to explain to a lot of people. So what they do is, I've seen churches do it before the services or like after the services. So during the service, there's not like this thing for, if you're a guest, you're not like, what's going on? But it's kind of cool to see the other end of the spectrum where you're doing it like openly in your service and you're making a point to talk to people about that. That's just, I don't know. I love ministry. It's so cool to see all the different ways it can be done.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We'd have a missionary conference every year in Las Vegas. Greatest place to do conferences. Cheap hotels. That's why. Cheap hotels. And we'd do it in Vegas, and it'd be about 40 guys from Arizona, California. And a bunch of them, would have mission churches. And if you don't have any adult confirmed members, like you can't do communion in the service because everybody's going through big still. So they do it maybe before with a handful of leaders or afterward or, So there's no laws on that. You know, it's not like there's a handbook handed down from Synod. Our churches have a wide latitude, within Christian love and good use of our brains, to figure out how to do some of this stuff. But yeah, it's awesome to see the different contexts and still be proud, that God has made us in a good sense, proud of the heritage that we have and the means of grace we get to steward.
whenever I've heard about other kind of startup churches outside of the Midwest, it seems like they kind of have to go in with the mindset, like you said about, you can say wells, but it doesn't really mean anything to these people.
Yeah.
And so, not that the ministry is like harder outside the Midwest, it's just you have to be different. And you have to differentiate yourself from all the noise that's out there.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be really intentional about that too. And it's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And even our, like our worship, following the liturgy and doing what we do and doing it really well. Don't do it sloppy or haphazardly. But even that could be different. Like, man, you've got a different feel. Like you confess your sins. You say a creed together. Like some of that stuff is just so foreign, but it's so beautiful and natural and it's got a rhythm to it. It's kind of cool being able to introduce that to people.
I think it'd be tempting, probably for me, just to like going into a culture where contemporary worship is so like prevalent.
Yeah.
And then saying, no, we're gonna keep doing it this way.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And that's what I had some guys who said, like there's nothing like our church in the whole city. They'd say there's nobody doing it like this. Wow. It was liturgical, but it was done. We'd have all sorts of instruments. We'd have guitar playing, piano. We'd do like, there was one Sunday where we'd have our musicians like flute and bass guitar and accompanying the service. So you do different things. But we're still doing the liturgy straight out of the hymnal pretty much. He'd be like, man, nobody is doing this. And then there'd be other people who were like, oh, we should try different things. And he would be the first to stand up and say, you can't out non-denom the non-denoms. Like, you're never going to do it better than they are. So it's like, okay, in our context with our small group of, 250 people, we're like, okay, this is who we are. Let's own it. And really, it came down to, I found too, a lot of people worship for us, maybe because we're used to being in the church. Worship is a bigger deal. The music is a bigger deal. Most people that would come, they're like, do you have a good sermon? Like, that's what they care about.
Yeah.
People don't sing anyway. Doesn't matter what kind of music you're going to play. They don't sing. And so it was the message, something that hit home. And if you pour yourself as a pastor into that, doing that well, you just trust the Lord to take care of the rest.
I've seen a lot of statistics that actually say that, contemporary worship, if you look at the list of why people come into church for the first time, contemporary worship is like towards the bottom of the list. The top two, like by far and away, are preaching and then like church culture. And
like friendliness.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody welcome me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had in California, we had a number of people that were just awesome at that, who would be the greeter, the person to hug somebody new, to say welcome, to kind of ask them, not in a pushy or stuffy way, but just, hey, where are you from? Great to have you here. Stay for some coffee and snack and, just talk their ear off and make a good connection, a human connection. That's what people care about.
Yeah.
That's refreshing because I think a lot of pastors sometimes feel like they're the only ones doing that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They got to be the ones at the door. When people are leaving, people are getting there. And that's just a lot of pressure and stress when it's all on you.
Yeah. And we got rid of, like, it's little things too to think about your culture. We got rid of like the ushering out thing. It's like, hey, you're adults. Just stand up when you're ready to go. And that actually led people to, then you felt more comfortable talking to the person behind you, and you weren't getting shooed out the door. And we didn't have a huge gathering space outside. We were looking at building or expanding and things like that. And, if you don't have a good gathering space, it's hard to shoo everybody out there and then expect conversation to happen. Yeah. So in the sanctuary, just, stand up, talk to the person behind you, say hi. We do that a lot on festivals or when our school kids would sing, say hi to the person in front of you or behind you, take time right now. I'll make you do that. I'll force you to do that. But then you at least make a connection with somebody. And, so.
What has maybe been your best piece of advice that you could offer for how to help grow and establish an effective church culture within the churches that you served as a parish pastor? What's worked for you, I guess? Oh yeah, that's a good question. I think so this is a phrase that I remember hearing early on in my ministry. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Mm-hmm. And so I just made it a point to try and get to know people
And the church in California had a good culture before I got there. So it was it was not anything on me, but I could try and do little things to encourage a positive culture. And the number one thing is get to know people, be interested in people. And we spend a lot of time as pastors studying or writing or in our offices, and getting out there, getting to know people is the biggest thing. And then encourage cultural things that can make a difference. So like our synod has something called Everyone Outreach, which is a congregational program, but it's totally different. I was really excited to go through it because it's totally different than other programs. It's not like, here are the 5 things you need to do to grow your church. It's more, here, take a look at your church's culture. Do you have a culture that greets people? If not, why not? And
why not?
And why not? And then can you change that? Can you intentionalize you're going to talk to, somebody new every Sunday? And that's just your one goal, individually, you're going to make that a personal goal. And then, and that's kind of Everyone Outreach has these little individual things that can influence a church culture. Mm-hmm. So I think that program was really cool, but it was cool to go through it too, because we were like, oh, we're doing a bunch of this. Not that we're perfect or anything like that. And it forced us to ask some tough questions of ourselves and evaluate things. But yeah, culture is big to think about. What is our church culture? And then how conducive is that to actually welcoming people? One thing I will say, when I first got out to California, they've been a church, they started in 1966. And the pastor that started the church is still alive in there. And a lot of the success in an earthly sense, I'd say it's God, the Holy Spirit, working through his word. Yeah. But the longevity of his ministry, 40 years in one place, was he had a positive culture over a long period of time. And that is a huge earthly blessing. So I got to reap the benefits of that in a big way. But then I would talk to people. I'd say, okay, this is a church, right? We're an established church. How would it be different if we were a mission church? Like when we first started, they were worshiping in a hotel. And some of the people remember that. Some of the old timers who were maybe kids when their parents started the church. Like, you remember that? Where you were in a hotel and you had to set up chairs. And if you didn't invite somebody to church, the church dies. If you don't invite somebody, this ain't growing. So if you have that mindset as an established church, you think, I need to bring somebody here. I need to tell somebody, not because we just need butts in the seats, but I know people in my life who need Jesus. Yeah. And they might do the Jesus speak, because we had a pretty conservative area of California. It's not we would, if you think California, this is not that California you think of. The coast is what most people think of. The fruits and the nuts.
The fruits and the nuts.
That's California is a wonderful agricultural state too. Right? Like lots of almonds. Fruit trees. That's what I'm talking about.
Right.
But that's California. And then you have where we were. So it was a conservative area. It was a lot of, good, they care about their community. They care about each other, but that doesn't, if without Jesus, they're dying and going to hell. Yeah. So who can you invite? So that was the only, the big cultural thing that I tried to talk about. And I totally could have done it more, and I was not, and then just be positive. Everything comes from the leadership down. Honestly, if you're a grumpy Gus who isn't happy to be there on a Sunday morning, nobody else is going to be happy to be there, right? That was the highlight of my week, was Sunday morning, being around people. And we were able to, we adopted a second site, that I had been serving as a vacancy pastor. And then we adopted that as a second site. So we kind of tried to view that as a mission. If we were going to start a second mission, what would we do? Get a core group together, try and plan outreach, and God blessed it. And we were able to call a staff minister from St. Paul's, New Ulm, actually. He came all the way from California. Yeah. And then I came here 2 years later, and we kind of switched places. So that was the kind of what does it mean? As a mission church, you gotta be moving. You can't be stagnant. Wherever you are, even if it's a big old church, you got to think, how are we moving forward with the word? Not that everything needs to change, right? But how are you going to invite people? How are you going to serve in new ways? What things can we do that glorify God? Let's not just sit back and take it easy. We got to work while it's day.
Yeah. You said the previous pastor or the one who started the church was still there?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So I've heard of churches where the old pastor stays, and it creates maybe an unhealthy dynamic between the congregants looking at him as their old pastor, but then they have this new pastor.
Oh yeah.
And did you like meet with him and talk with him about ministry in that area?
Yeah, I did.
Beginning?
I thought he's the guy with the experience. And so I would often, we'd have a congregational meeting. I'd kind of get together with him and talk about some stuff and maybe say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. And I think a lot of times in the church, egos get in the way.
Yeah.
So if you just don't let your ego get in the way, and then hopefully he doesn't let his ego get in the way, which he didn't. He was never a thorn, flying the ointment or anything like that. He always wanted to see the church grow. So we had a great relationship. Okay. And that helped. Like I said, in Manitowoc, I had a lot of pastors in the church, which I always loved having pastors in the church. I felt like it made me a better pastor because I wanted to serve them to the best of my ability. If I was a pastor in a church, I want to be given the gospel every Sunday. I want to have good teaching and preaching. I want to have a pastor that cares about me. And I would never play insider baseball with them. I'd be like, well, what do you need? Can I serve you? It wasn't like a competition in any way. So if you keep that in mind, I think it's not like we're in heaven yet, so there are always going to be problems, but it worked out great for me that he was still there, and it was hard to leave him. He was one of those people that I just respected and still, loves so much in the Lord, but I know God's going to take care of him too.
Yeah, for sure.
What was that thought process like, accepting the call and deliberating the call from MLC to teach Hebrew, and balancing that with the pre-existing ministry you had in California?
Yeah, that was deliberation was tough too, just because I knew what ministry in California was all about. I knew how hard it had been for them to get a pastor before me. We were in the middle of exciting, good stuff, but I also know MLC's ministry, and there aren't always a lot of guys that jump at the chance to teach Hebrew. So I thought, okay, how to balance these things and the kingdom needs and what both calls are asking, and try and weigh my gifts and abilities and where the Lord could use me in the best way. That was a tough deliberation, because coming here, you would never say like, well, it's not like you guys aren't baptized or something. Out there, I could point to people that I'm like actively trying to baptize their kids and get them into big class. And it's like, so the deliberation was totally different than anything I've had previous, because I had to think a little bit bigger picture and long term. And you guys are going to go out and baptize people, and you better not screw it up.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah, it's like no pressure. But that's kind of what I thought. I talked with President Girdle, and a great guy, and he was one of my mentors at seminary, and one of the guys who had a big impact on me. So I talked with him a lot about the call and some of those struggles and wrestling, but ultimately just had to kind of take it to the Lord and talk with my wife about it too. What would be best for our family, and for, what she thought about my gifts, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I've heard that in our synod, there's a lot of guys that are maybe very good with Greek, and there's a lot more potentially qualified candidates to teach Greek at MLC than there necessarily is for Hebrew. So I don't know if you were keeping up with with Professor Nass, our old Hebrew professor's retirement, or if you knew that had happened, but was you getting a potential call to MLC to teach Hebrew? Is that something that was even on your radar? Like, did you think that you might be one of the candidates considered before you actually got it?
I knew I was on the list. Okay. Because they have a nomination list that gets published. So there were about 20 guys on the list. And yeah, so I knew I was at least that far. And I'd taken the Hebrew Institute the summer before. So I knew Professor Ness. He kind of told us all that he's retiring. So I was like, okay. So I knew he was stepping away. But yeah, I love Hebrew. I love the Hebrew language. I've tried to keep up on it as parish pastor. But
you find time for that?
Yeah. I mean, with like Hebrew Institute, or I took classes from SEM,
okay.
Or I got into spoken language stuff.
Like present day Hebrew? Is that
Yeah. Well, it's biblical Hebrew, but they do spoken language element of it.
Okay.
So yeah, I had started with spoken Greek, and I did like a 2-week immersion of spoken Greek at the University of Oregon in Eugene. And then that group kind of got me connected with spoken Hebrew, and I was like, oh, this is cool too, and so yeah, it was my 2 weeks at Greek camp. This one time at Greek camp turned into a whole Hebrew thing too, and it just kind of language part of my journey. Just my church was so supportive; they were awesome. Like, yeah, keep growing, because it helped. Like, it was a blessing in Bible class, sermons. It just, you want to have a passion for the Word of God. And that's kind of what I've always tried to do as a pastor, is stay connected with that. Yeah. In our church body, I think Greek, everybody's doing Greek because you're preaching, you're out of the New Testament all the time. I think the Old Testament is a little bit harder because you're not always preaching from the Old Testament. So then, like, the weekly text study isn't quite what it is if you're doing Greek every week. But
yeah, were you always much of a language guy, like when you were a student at MLC, or is it something that you did just because you kind of had to get through it to get the diploma?
Oh yeah, no, I always enjoyed it. Yeah, I took Latin with Professor Frederick, and I took German with Danelle. Some of the hardest classes were those German classes. And Greek and Hebrew, I just always really had a blast with them. So
you took Latin and German.
Yeah. Yep.
So you were 4 languages then, right?
Yep. So yeah, my sophomore year. This is why I didn't date anybody. No. I remember my second semester freshman year, I had 3 languages, and it was just insane.
That is insane. I would say that.
Probably unhealthy amount of time in the library for me, but thankfully my friends didn't give up on me. So
I'll never forget my first day of German with Professor Danell. He tells everybody what to expect in the course, and he says, gentlemen, my teaching style for German is a little like being pushed into the deep end of the pool without a life vest. It's crude but effective. Right. I was like, okay, thanks for giving me a warning. Yeah. At least I know that this is going to be awful. Right. I was warned. So.
You will be
sink or swim.
You will be challenged. That's for sure. Yeah.
Like I said, it's definitely not where I'm at. I'm not excited to have 3 or 4 languages to do. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to be able to read the Bible in the original text, but it's definitely not something that I'm as passionate about as you. Yeah.
Could you maybe elaborate on just why it is such a blessing for pastor track students at MLC to take the languages? I know listeners at MLC probably know more so than listeners outside of MLC, but I think it'd just be cool just to hear it from the language guy or a language guy at MLC.
Oh yeah. I think about a couple of things in a spiritual sense, and then even in a worldly sense. So the spiritual sense, Martin Luther said that without the languages, we won't long keep the gospel. So they are the sheath in which the sword of the Spirit is contained. And so studying the languages allows us to know what the scriptures proclaim about Christ, and to be absolutely confident in that, and to understand it and grow in that in a way that you can't get if you work in English. Not that the English won't lead somebody to faith and salvation. Totally can do that. But I think the depth of understanding and appreciation for the gospel that comes from knowing Greek and Hebrew is unparalleled. So then being able to drink from a pure fountain and share that pure fountain with people is the goal of ministry. And so you could do that in Bible class, you could do that in sermon, you could do that at a bedside or at a kitchen table, but to be able to do, like, I can tell you with 100% certainty, this is what God is saying to you, law and gospel, and to proclaim it boldly without fear. It's not my word, it's His. So I think that spiritual sense is why studying the languages is so important. I think in a worldly sense, there's also that too. What we have here is totally unique. When I mentioned the Greek camp, this one time at Greek camp, I would tell people, I was the only parish pastor there. Everybody else, there were people from Oxford, from Gordon Cromwell Seminary on the East Coast. There were people from the Episcopalian Seminary, and I would tell them what we do for training 4 years of Greek, 2 years of Hebrew. They're like, no way. Everybody? I'm like, everybody. This cadre of people would kill for that because they're maybe adults who are trying to pick up Greek, in their 50s. And they're people who are, there were some guys who are teaching Greek that I bet you guys know more Greek than they do. It's crazy. Yeah. Or like one guy taught Hebrew. He had never read Hebrew. He was a teacher of Hebrew. He's like, yeah, I really need to get better at it. I'm like, you teach Hebrew. One guy, I took a class at UC Berkeley, which is really known for their ancient Near East program and their archaeology program. And I took it and because I wasn't too far away, and I would talk to him about my Hebrew. And I'd be like, well, how much do you read, in biblical Hebrew? And he's like, I don't. Well, you teach at one of the highest level universities in the country and you don't read it? You don't know it? So that's where, in a worldly sense, even we've got something that is just phenomenal. Now, that doesn't exactly inspire you to study for your semester final, but it does show that you've been given an amazing gift and ability here that when you put it in the perspective of the broader world, people are like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So, yeah, I think there's the spiritual reasons as pastors and as leaders in the church. We got to be able to combat false doctrine too. You can't accurately combat false doctrine if you're not working from the Greek and Hebrew. It's the devil will slide in some way. And so to be able to go back to that is one of the earthly reasons. I say earthly reason in the sense that it's something we can control that has kept our church body on the narrow Lutheran middle road. Because the main reason is it's grace. It's God's gift to us that our church body hasn't been filled with false doctrine and crazy, wacky things happening all over the place, which a lot of churches have to deal with. So the main blessing is just grace, God at work. But in an earthly sense, it's that tide for the languages and what we expect of our pastors. We don't let just anybody do this. And that does put a standard that, we have. So, yeah.
I don't know what your guys' stories are, like what your guys' experience are with the languages, but there's been times that I've been studying my Hebrew in a coffee shop or something, and people are so infatuated by it. Like, they'll come up and they'll see what I'm doing and they'll ask me to translate a sentence or read a sentence to them. And I literally had a Kenyan pastor come up to me one day in a coffee shop and asked me to teach him Hebrew. He gave me his contact information so I could set up days and appointments to teach him Hebrew. And it's I got to learn Hebrew myself first before I can try and teach it. But it is really cool to just see the interest. And I guess that's, to me, has maybe been where I see the most value is people want to hear it and they want to learn about it. Then it only makes sense that we as their shepherds or future shepherds should be learning it ourselves so we can do that. So.
Yep. Yeah, you never know what doors God's going to open in those conversations. And yeah, it's pretty cool.
I do really appreciate the little devotions you have at the beginning of class, and sometimes there'll be a Hebrew verse or something like that, and you kind of dive into it from the linguistic perspective, and it's sometimes you tell stories, and that's fun too. But it's fun to see these verses that we all have heard before in English, but then you're like, oh, that's what it looks like in the original language.
Yeah.
I think maybe that might be a good segue into our last question here, talking about devotions and getting into God's Word. We always love to ask the people that come on the podcast what their devotional life looks like and how you kind of tailor that to your own perspectives, and really just love to hear what works for you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think my devotional life has changed over the years. I think I've grown in it big time. When I was a vicar is when I really started taking it seriously and doing more, because you're in class, you're doing a lot of stuff in class, and it can be hard to find a good routine or a good time frame. But as a vicar is when I really was able to do it. And so my devotional life has been and continues to be morning prayer and scripture reading and reading through the whole Bible every year. So it's usually 3 or 4 chapters a morning, and I just take it, and I've got a nice program that I follow to get through the whole Bible in a year. It's one chapter of the New Testament and then 3 in the Old, basically, will get you through the whole Bible.
You don't do you go like in order? Always?
Yeah, the reading plan that I follow like has it in order. So the Old Testament is from Genesis to Malachi. Just finishing up Malachi now, and then the New Testament is the Gospels through the letters, and then end with Revelation. So I'm in Revelation, and I think that it throws in the Gospels. But yeah, so being in Scripture, and then the Lutheran Confessions are the other thing. I try to read through the Confessions every year. So it's like little snippets that I'll read in the morning. That's not as long as the Bible. So getting through that and just being not always reading super in depth because it's not like I'm studying. It's just devotionally. So it's kind of reading it, processing, thinking about it a little bit, praying, and then at night is when I pray. That's when I do think it's good to get down on your knees and pray. I used to pray like lying down in my bed and I'd fall right asleep. I am out. So I take a little bit of time and I try and do that. Yeah, just the word and the confessions. Those are my go-tos. My wife and I'll do stuff like a devotion book, or my kids, we have an Advent devotion book that we read at the kitchen table after supper. And that's probably been the biggest change too, just to throw this in there, of being able to be here as a professor from parish ministry, is the evening devotions with my family are really cool. Because as a pastor, you're not always even home in the evenings just because of meetings or like things scheduled or things come up that you gotta. I gotta go to the hospital. Somebody's in. I'm not. My family understands. It worked out. We had other times that were free and stuff, but. That evening time with the family was a big one. So it's still a work in progress. I think you always got to be growing devotionally, but I mean, being tied to the word. And I've gone through devotion books like early on in my ministry, and it just wasn't the same as just reading scripture and then being able to look up, I wonder what that is in Greek. And you just do it real quick. It's nothing like fancy, but do a little cheater with a Greek reader or something like that. And then you're like, okay, that's pretty cool. And you just move on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you have the whole Bible in a year.
In a year, yep.
And how many years have you done that?
This is my 8th year doing it all the way through. So before I got to California is when I started. And I think early on in my ministry is when the Lutheran Study Bible came out. And that has a 2-year program. So I did that. I did it like every 2 years. I was reading the Bible then.
And do you find that you notice something new every time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm like, I know I've read this before, but I don't remember that. Yeah. In like 2 Kings where Elijah dies or Elisha dies, and they throw his body in a grave, or he's in a grave, and then they throw a body on top of him, and the body comes back to life.
That's right.
I'm like, that's in the Bible? It's like, yep, it has to do with Elisha. He's kind of a big deal, right? But how many times have I missed that one?
Yeah.
So yeah, always something.
That's really cool. And you get to see that, like the whole picture of the prophecies and how it plays out throughout the Old Testament, and then its fulfillment. Yeah. And it's just all ties together in the connection.
Yeah. Yep. And then it'd be cool how, like, I'd encourage my church to do the same thing, and then people would be reading through it in the congregation, and then they'd text me. I'd say, text me questions. And they'd text me stuff. I'd be like, I know what you're talking about. I read it too. Kind of weird. Or, had that thought too.
Do you ever take notes on like your devotions at all, or do you just like keep it all up in your head?
Oh yeah, no, I'll put it like I've got my Bible and it's NIV 84. I'm not changing. Don't make me change. I have all these notes from SEM, from Bible classes I've taught. Every time I preach on a text, I make notes in my Bible because I'm like, this hit me. I got to write this down. I want to remember it. And so I do that devotionally too. And then I can review them. And like in the book of Revelation, I've done number of Bible classes on Revelation. So I got so many notes on it. And right now reading through it, it's one chapter, but it takes me like, 25 minutes to get through it because I'm reading the notes and I'm thinking about stuff. And Revelation chapters are actually kind of short. You can make it through in 4 or 5 minutes, but I just drag it out because I'm having too much fun.
Yeah. I feel like with Revelation specifically, like every other like word has got to be like, oh my goodness, what does that mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I imagine that would take, at least me, I feel like a Revelation devotion would take even longer than like a regular one or a different one. So.
Yeah.
Do you find sometimes that you are forcing yourself to write notes, or do you think thoughts come to you?
Yeah, sometimes I got forced myself to read
Sure.
I'll be honest
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm not going out the house till I finish this. So wake up earlier.
I just know for me, like sometimes I get a lot out of devotions when I am reading it and I'm like, oh, that's what that means. And I start writing it down.
Yeah.
I get a lot out of that.
Yep.
And then I think, oh, I should do that every time. But then it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah.
And I find myself trying to force, like it almost becomes a chore.
Oh,
When
sure.
I try to force myself to write something where it's like, maybe you just got to meditate on the words of God.
Yeah, yeah. And that's what it did happen that in my life devotionally, I started out like, I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to read. And I think the first maybe year or two, it was almost like a chore. It was like another thing I had to do off the to-do list.
Yeah.
But then something clicked that it just became more of a habit that it's like brushing your teeth. If you don't do it, you're like, oh man, that's what, you just want to do it,
Yeah.
you know? And so like, I think I'd encourage people to think about it that way. It's not a have to, it's a want to. And how do you get there? It only comes through practice. It doesn't come because we have a sinful nature and the devil doesn't want us reading the word, doing anything devotionally. So whatever you do, you got to kind of dedicate yourself to it and then say, I'm going to stick with this for a long time. It can't be, well, I tried it for 3 months and nothing improved in my life. It's like, well, your life is a little bigger than a 3-month, workout routine. So it's that habit forming stuff that's going to bring long-term benefits to you and the people you serve.
So you almost have to, I don't know, have that discipline or force yourself to do it before it can become more meaningful?
I think for some people, yeah. I think that for me, it was that way.
Okay.
And maybe that's the, I need a little structure. That's why I want to go into the Marines. I don't mind a little bit more structure. But yeah, it's a spiritual battle. So, I mean, I think of what St. Paul said, where physical training has value, but spiritual training has value in all things. And what does spiritual training look like? We gotta ditch the coffee shop Christianity that treats it like a latte, and let's start digging into the word and being intentional about it every single day.
What do you mean by a latte?
Well, like light, like it's like light beer latte.
Oh, okay,
It's like it's fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's a Christian. Isn't it great? It's like, no, it's hard to be a Christian.
Yeah.
It's a gift from God, but the actual practice and growth, the training in righteousness, all that stuff, it's a definite spiritual battle and you got to be dedicated to it. And that's where, like a lot of churches talk about their decision for Christ. Have you made your decision for Christ?
Yeah.
It's like, okay. But I put it on every person confirmed in my church. Have you decided that you're going to be serious about your Christian faith?
Yeah,
That in the realm of
something,
sanctification, that's definitely something I want people to do.
Decide,
Don't just bash the Baptist neighbor who, invited Jesus into his heart. Okay, that's false teaching. That's wrong. But I hope you wake up every morning and say, I want to glorify God today. I want to grow in my faith today. Those are decisions you make every day. It's like, I'm going to be a good husband today. I'm going to do my best to be a good dad. Then when I screw up, I'm thankful at the end of the day. There's a whole lot of forgiveness and grace for all of us in Christ. But I'm not going to start my day being like, well, I'm saved so I can take it easy. I want to be after it. I want to grow.
And like the decision to be a good husband that day doesn't necessarily mean that you feel all like lovey-dovey or like you feel like doing it, but that's almost, there's real love in that situation where you're choosing to do it despite how you feel. And maybe that's what I'm looking for in the devotion is like, there's real commitment when you don't feel like it and you're still choosing to do it, still choosing to incorporate it in your life, make it a priority.
Yeah.
Is like, that's love.
Yeah. I mean, if my wife's listening to this, I always have the lovey-dovey feeling. And I always appreciate it.
I'm sure your wife does too.
But yeah, no, the choosing. I think that a little bit of that for us as Lutherans is the remnants of pietism, which pietism was a movement in the 17 and 1800s where it put more emphasis on the personal religious experience than the objective truth of the word. So and that influences American Christianity too. Like if you don't feel it, well then must not have been a good worship service. If you don't feel it, well then, the sermon sucked. Well, no, did he proclaim law and gospel? Was it textual? Like those are the things, objective reality and truth is what matters. And the same is true devotionally. Like my personal feelings on any given day shouldn't dictate how my devotional life goes because it's God feeding me through his word. And I get to respond and I want to respond in a joyful and thankful manner. But sometimes that's not there. And I could still be fed and strengthened through that word. And know that my standing before God is not based upon how I feel. Cause I know I feel closer to God, quote unquote, when things are good.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But is that really how God operates? No. Yeah. It's more my own feeling that I've got to watch out for the emotionalism taking over or that sort of thing. I've got to just let him speak, let his truth be my delight, and keep growing.
Mm-hmm. Praise God that our relationship with him isn't based on feelings, because feelings are so volatile. I mean, it's a good thing that I don't only need to be close to God when I'm feeling good, because, that doesn't happen 100% of the time. So,
Yep. Amen.
I wanted to ask, for prayer life specifically, do you have a prayer that like you say to yourself every day, or do you just, I don't know, do like the Lord's Prayer? What does your prayer life look like? Is it different?
I do Luther's morning and evening prayers.
Okay.
That's just kind of been my thing. And my kids, we do that on the way to school. Luther's morning prayer. My daughters knew it at 3 years old when we take them to preschool.
Okay.
The kids can memorize. And I would tell people too this in my church. Say the Lord's Prayer and the Apostles' Creed every day. I actually stole that from C.S. Lewis. He said people don't just people don't just like quit the church cold turkey. You know, it's a rare person that's like, I'm done with the church. What happens is people drift.
Mm-hmm.
They just drift. And it's like, it's 1 month away, and that's 2 months, and that's 3 months. And then before you know it, you haven't been to church in a year. So I would say the best earthly thing you can do is be firm and faithful in your prayer life, but say the Lord's Prayer and the Apostles' Creed every single day. Even that's hard. It's like, it seems so simple. You know them by heart. Try doing that every single day, either in the morning or in the evening. Like, that's dedication. So that would be those are my go-tos, is just keep doing that. And if I can add other stuff on top of that, if I can read a little bit more or say a special prayer for our college, our synod, I pray for my advisees regularly. Those are things that I keep in mind, but it's all icing on the cake of the foundation of the scriptures, the confessions, and then the creed and the Lord's Prayer.
And they're not things that we do in order to be a good Christian.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's more training for myself in reviewing the truths of our faith, the catechism. I like to go through the 10 Commandments. You know, it's not that I forgot it's wrong to steal. It's just, okay, this is the language of faith, the language that I want my soul to hear.
Your spirit needs food.
Yep, over and over and over. And like the creed is, we just say it in church, but man, make it part of your personal life. And even if it's just a couple times a week, that's an awesome reminder of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit who saved you, made you his own. But yeah, definitely not. I'm no uber Christian here. I fail at this way more than I succeed at it. But this is the goal. I personally think you set a high standard for yourself, and then you live with a lot of grace.
Yeah.
Right. It's if you set the bar low, people people won't reach it because we're all sinners, and then they're not really even getting anything out of it. So I would try for myself and other people, set it high, but then we're grace. I'm not gonna jump on you if you didn't read your Bible today. Like, that's the wrong way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks you guys for having me. This is awesome that you're doing this, and I keep praying for your studies and your work through this Echoes of Sunday. It's awesome.
Yeah.
We appreciate it, and we would love to have you on again at another time, maybe later when you're more seasoned.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you have a trip to Israel coming up too, right?
Yeah, I'm going January 1st to the 14th. So
okay.
Oh wow!
Over the J term,
okay.
I'm going to go to Israel, and the seminary's got a tour group going, and I get
it's a seminary.
Tag along. And
are you're not helping lead it though, right? Because you've never been there.
No,
okay.
Yep, I've never been there, so I get to see and just experience it all, and hopefully it's the first of many trips to the Holy Land.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. We would love to maybe talk about that on a future podcast. And at the very least, I look forward to hearing about it once you get back to class second semester. I think that'll be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Take lots of notes.
Yes. Absolutely.
I did want to say, if we are doing bad in Hebrew, just know it's because we're so busy with the Echoes of Sunday podcast. So a little bit of grace there.
Right, there you go.
No.
You're greasing the wheels already, huh?
No, but thank you seriously, Professor,
really
so much for
appreciate
coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been fun.
We're super grateful for you to be here at MLC. You've made my junior year to be an absolute incredible blessing to me so far. So just thank you for that. And just blessings on all your ministry you have going on at MLC and other places and other facets of your life. And yeah, I'll just look forward to talking with you soon about this again.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you guys for the support. Thank you guys for listening, and blessings on your week. And we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.